Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Striketh, and today I'm here to talk about my first 30 days in Hearthstone, and just tell you about how it's gone for me and all the things that I've experienced along the way. So when I first started Hearthstone a month ago, I wasn't really 100% sure of what I was going to get into, so I kind of started in the casual queue. I just played around with decks, I net decked a few things, and yes, net decking is a terminology I've picked up in the last month. And I just kind of learned the ins and outs of the game. I learned all the different deck types, all the different classes. I played all the classes, I got all the basic cards unlocked, and so on and so forth. The thing that anybody new to any game should really do. And I just kept playing casual for all of June. I decided that July would be when I jump into the ladder for the first time. So I played casual, and I kept kind of coming up with modified versions of different decks and my own versions of decks, some more successful than others. And then we go into July where I hit the ladder for the first time. The ladder has so far been a kind of frustrating experience. There's a lot of complaints right now about Hearthstone, especially on Reddit. And I mean, Reddit is a place where people go to complain about everything. But it's interesting seeing how many people complain, like the game is stale, everyone's net decking, so all the decks are the same, the meta is boring, you're up against 3,000 Miracle Rogues, or just a ton of Zulocks, yada 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 yada. And I can definitely see where the complaints come from, because I can definitely say that the majority of the decks I've gone up against since I've been on the ladder have been Zulock. And of course, Miracle Rogue plays a large portion of that as well. Now, of course, the ladder is dynamic. A deck that works on Monday might not work on Tuesday, because decks change and RNG kind of plays into it as well. And when I say RNG, I mean who you're matched up against. For example, today, I went up against 7 Zulocks. On Sunday, when I last played for a few hours, I went up against 2 Zulocks, and I had a 70% win rate, and my Token Druid deck I'd built was doing really well. Today, my Token Druid deck was getting shut down by Zulocks, Handlocks, Miracle Rogues, and various Hunters, because, Explosive Trap wrecks tokens. So, today wasn't nearly as successful, so I kind of had to build a new deck. So, I'm really liking Druid right now, so I went ahead and I built a Druid deck that's heavy with taunts. And of course, you're probably rolling your eyes if you played the game for a while. You're like, oh, you're playing that ramp druid that's brainless and so on and so forth. But that's what I have to do to make progress on the ladder, especially as a druid. I need the taunts to be able to survive the onslaught of Shockadens and Zulocks and Cancer Rogues and Aggro Mages and so on and so forth. That's where I'm at right now. I've gotten down to rank 11, so I'm definitely not legend or anything right now. But it's been kind of a precarious experience along the way. I've had a lot of fun with the game, but I've also had some frustrations as well. The first night that I actually ran ladder, I started at rank 20, and this is where I found people farming for gold. So people would play a game against you with an aggro deck or a Zulock deck or whatever, and then they would concede their next game, so they would stay at rank 20. So you would end up going against the same people multiple times, and they're always ranked 20. They never progressed. And I kind of noticed this along the way. I actually had, at one point, 2 people that had been previously matched up against at rank 20. 2 games in a row, they both conceded as soon as the game started. Obviously farming gold so they could stay rank 20. And that was a little odd. So, and of course with the reset of all the ladder ranks and so on and so forth, everyone was around rank 20 to 16 again. So this means that players that were in the ranks 5 to 1 the previous season and so on and so forth, and even legend players were kind of around my rank, and everyone was competing. So it's kind of every man for himself. Everyone's trying to get down the ladder, get back to those lower ranks, get back to legend, and I just didn't stand a chance. I was getting wrecked left and right. I actually on a work night, I was playing and I was like, all right, I'm just going to get down to rank 16. I need 1 star and I'll be there and I'll log off for the night. 6 hours later, the sun is rising. I'm still awake saying, just 1 more star. I had literally gone up and down in rank so many times but I never hit rank 16 in that time. So I was so super frustrated at the game at that point, and I almost got to the point where I was like, screw this game, I'm going to something else. But I slept it off, and I was like, alright, well, obviously that was my fault. I tilted, and more terminology I picked up in the last month. And, you know, I got pissed off at the game. I wasn't playing very well, so I reattacked it, and I built some new decks, and I kind of went up the ladder. I went and I tried a mage, I tried a shaman. My shaman deck that I posted actually here on my channel did extremely well, getting me a couple of ranks off of that. And then I eventually went to druid, and I went from rank 16 to 11 with token druid. That deck has served me really well so far, and I've changed it up a couple of times. Just today wasn't a very good day for it, so I had to build the ramp druid deck instead. But so far, I can say that with Naxxramas being right on the verge of coming out, there's a lot of people that are very impatient with the game. A lot of people that play since beta that are just whining about the stale meta and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of tension right now in the Hearthstone community as people really want Naxxramas to come out, and they want all these new cards, and they want to finally, you know, get away from these stale decks that they complain about. Although, from what I've seen, I don't think these decks are going to magically disappear overnight. Like, Naxx isn't going to come out, and all of a sudden Miracle Rogue's going to vanish forever, and there's going to be no more Freeze Mage, and there's going to be no more Zulok. Well, I'm sorry to say, but Zulok is still going to be one of the cheapest decks that you can build, and new players are still going to play it, and people just rushing up the ladder are still going to play it. It allows you to play a lot of games in a short amount of time, and it generally has a good win percentage. So these decks are going to vanish. You're going to modify them, sure. They're going to add new cards, they're going to subtract some cards, and you're going to see decks, you know, get changed a bit, but again, they're not going to just magically vanish overnight. So I think people are kind of expecting too much out of Naxx, especially since only one wing is coming out at a time, and each one is coming out the week after until all of the wings are out. So there's not going to be a major dramatic change. It's like, okay, here's the first wing, a week goes by, here's the next wing, and you know, you're going to see cards coming out, but kind of slowly. And I'm assuming Blizzard is doing that to give the players time to test things out, to find any problems so they can, you know, patch things up and balance things if necessary. And also so that the meta doesn't drastically change overnight. Blizzard has always been very careful about patching and so on. So I don't think they're going to do anything careless, like just dropping all of the cards at once. Like, here you go, boys, have fun. So yeah, it's been a very interesting experience. I've spent a lot of time watching streamers, you know, the obvious ones like Trump, Tides of Time, and all those people that are just generally pretty good at the game and are entertaining to watch. And I've definitely learned a lot from them, but I've also read sites like Hearthstone and kind of looked at other people's deck builds and built my own. Sometimes based off them, sometimes just taking an idea, like a Shadow Form deck for Priest, which was new to me at the time, and building a deck based off of that idea, my own version of it. Obviously, Shadow Form is not a new idea. People have built and used decks with it in it, but it was new to me, and I kind of just got excited about the idea of it and built a deck around the idea of using Shadow Form. It's a pretty cool deck, but it's not viable in the current meta, so I really wouldn't recommend running it on the ladder. But it's definitely really fun and casual, and I mean, it's worth it when you can actually get a Velen out onto the board, and you have double Shadow Form, and you're just nuking everything on the board for 6 damage with your hero power for 2 mana every turn. If you get to that point in the game, it's really hard for them to come back if Velen survives that initial turn when you throw him out. So, all in all, I'll say that Hearthstone has been kind of an up and down experience. I think that playing casual and arena is really where the fun is. Once you start getting into the meta and you start getting into the higher levels of rank, a lot of the fun gets drained out of the game because the cards that are out right now in the deck builds that every single person is using are kind of stale, and I'll agree with that. So you run up against the same deck every single time. I mean, it's to the point where, you know, if a Warlock uses a coin on turn 1, then I automatically know it's a Zoolock. If a Warlock doesn't use a coin and just taps on turn 2, then I automatically know it's a Handlock. And I automatically know based on a rogue's first couple of turns whether they're a Cancer Rogue or whether they're a Miracle Rogue. They're so predictable. You automatically know exactly what kind of deck that person is playing, and you can generally predict what cards are going to be in it just based on their first actions in the first couple of turns. Sometimes even just on the mulligan. You can look at the mulligan like, oh, well, they tossed all their cards away, it must be this. Or, oh, they kept all their cards, well, then it must be that. And so in that regard, I'll definitely say that since I've been doing ranked, I've had less fun with the game. But I do like the challenge. For me, I don't expect to get Legend my first month going into the ladder, and I'm not even really trying hardcore to get there. I'm putting in like maybe 2.5 to 3 hours every other day. I'm not playing it, really crazy hardcore or anything. But I'm trying to have as much fun as I can getting up the ladder. I mean, today obviously wasn't a very fun day because I lost more games than I won. Actually, I had a 32% win rate, so that's quite a bit down from my 70% win rate the last time I played. And it was over about the same amount of time, about 2.5 to 3 hours, both play periods. So, I mean, that's the way it goes. I mean, I could have abandoned my Token Druid deck and just gone on with building my other Druid deck or switching to a Mage deck that I built or anything of the sort, but basically, I believe in variance. Sometimes you just get bad matchups. You're gonna lose no matter what deck you build, so jumping ship immediately as soon as you lose 1 or 2 or 3 games, in my opinion, is a bad idea. Some days you just have bad days. So today I went with the variance factor. It turned out that Token Druid was just getting hardcore countered today, so I swapped it up, and I only lost 2 games from that point on. I won almost all of the rest of my games, and I got back up, almost back to my previous rank 11, although I had dropped back to rank 13. The competition around those ranks right now is still pretty tough. I mean, especially with the fact, like I said earlier, that people are net decking, so like, you automatically know, oh, it's a Paladin, oh, he's played these cards, well, looks like he copied Kalento's deck, or someone's playing a Handlock, and they're like, oh, well, they just copied Trump's deck, and, things like that. You just kind of see these things happen on the ladder, and it kind of makes it boils down to RNG from that point. Whoever draws the best wins, because you're both running pretty solid decks. I mean, I have not neck decked what I'm playing right now. What I'm playing right now is based on an idea, Token Druid and Ram Druid, but I didn't net deck them. I built them myself. But I know they're solid decks. I put valued cards in there. Now, you have other people that, just copy the deck off the internet and you're like, hey, well, I've got this awesome deck that Kalento got rank 1 legend with, so I'm going to play that. And of course, then you start seeing this deck all along the ladder. So you almost need to look at what the streamers are playing and then build your deck around that to counter what they're playing, because you're almost guaranteed to run into people running it for the next week or two, maybe even for the rest of the season. So I've kind of rambled on a bit about, all the various things I've experienced and such. And, I'll say again, I've had fun with the game. Hearthstone is a good time. There's a lot to be had in it, and I think that once I get some more gold built up, and all the Nax cards are out and such, I might even gravitate towards Arena a lot more, because in my opinion, Arena is really where a lot of the fun is to be had in the game, because you don't really know what to expect. It's a lot more random, and you can build some really crazy decks that you can't do in Constructed. But anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me rambling about Hearthstone and to watch the video. Until next time, this is Striketh, checking out.